Tonight, more countries under attack in the Middle East. An Iranian missile is intercepted in NATO territory as the US launches a deadly strike at sea. And in Sydney, emotions run high as Australians make their way home. Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. This is ABC News. Two Prime Ministers, one message. Canada and Australia unite calling for global order. China boosts defence spending as thousands gather for the Communist Party's annual Congress. And F1 fans race to Albert Park to catch a glimpse of their favourite Grand Prix stars. Australian military assets have been deployed to the Middle East as part of contingency plans to help bring Australians home. The war in the region is widening sharply. 10 countries are now under attack from the Iranian regime. Iran is continuing to carry out strikes on multiple neighbours, insisting it's aiming at US military targets. NATO defences have shot down a ballistic missile that's believed to have been launched at Turkish territory. Israel and the US have been pounding Tehran and other parts of Lebanon, including Beirut. And an American submarine has sunk an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean near Sri Lanka. We'll have more on Lebanon and the Australian repatriations soon. Bridget Rollison begins our coverage tonight from Jerusalem.
An Iranian warship in the firing line. A torpedo from an American submarine sinking the vessel off the coast of Sri Lanka, killing at least 87 Iranian sailors.
This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
The conflict spreading to the Indian Ocean and into NATO territory after the alliance's air defences destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile headed for Turkey.
We are giving warnings in the clearest way possible for similar incidents not to occur again.
While in neighbouring Syria, an unexploded missile fell near the city of Kamishli.
It terrified children, women and people in the village.
6 days into the conflict, the US claims Iran is firing fewer missiles and that American and Israeli forces will soon have full control of the country's airspace.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15.
There could soon be another front in this already complex war, with reports American-backed Kurdish fighters in Iraq could launch a ground invasion in Iran. The White House has confirmed Donald Trump has spoken to Kurdish leaders, but has denied suggestions the president has authorised such a plan. An internet blackout imposed by the regime makes it difficult for Iranians to communicate with the outside world, but a professor in Tehran who supports the regime spoke to the ABC to criticise the US operation. Americans say that this campaign is ahead of schedule and it's taken out many senior figures. Is it time up for the Islamic regime?
No, these are pipe dreams. Trump has unified Iranians more than any Iranian politician could ever do.
Pointing specifically to the bombing of a girls' school, estimated to have killed more than 160 children.
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that.
The death toll across the Middle East and beyond continuing to rise as the conflict expands. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The federal government's refusing to say whether any Australian Defence Force personnel were on the US submarine which sank an Iranian frigate overnight. Dozens of Australians are embedded on US attack-class submarines as part of their training to operate the future AUKUS submarine fleet. The Foreign Minister has confirmed Australia did not participate in the US and Israeli airstrikes on Iran, but she's refused to say whether any Australians were on the US submarine that torpedoed the Iranian warship.
Were any Australian personnel on this US submarine when it sank the Iranian frigate and left the survivors to drown?
For operational and security reasons, we do not disclose specific information regarding Australian personnel.
Meanwhile, Israel has told residents of southern Lebanon to leave a large swathe of the region as it expands its assault on the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah. Tens of thousands of Lebanese people have already been displaced in just the past few days.
The Beirut bombardment. Israeli fighter jets launching strikes across the Lebanese capital against claimed Hezbollah targets, tearing city blocks apart, while focusing on the southern suburbs of Dahia, known as the militant group's strongholds.
We will not surrender. We will defend ourselves with our capabilities and our faith, no matter the sacrifices.
Israel struck further afield too, including at this hotel in a predominantly Christian neighbourhood. As staff began the mammoth clean-up task, questions were asked about why this site was targeted.
My family lives here. I cannot knowingly accommodate someone who is being targeted. We can screen people, but we cannot know everything.
There might be some of these places that are connected or affiliated to Hezbollah.
Tens of thousands have been displaced in recent days since Hezbollah launched rockets at Israel and Israel hit back hard. That number will now rise off the back of a startling escalation from the military.
We've just arrived here in northern Israel, very close to the Lebanon border, and it's at this point that the IDF has announced an evacuation of the entirety of southern Lebanon, telling people to move north. You can hear a series of explosions just over the border as Israel intensifies its strikes in that region.
The IDF telling hundreds of thousands of people in this area, long regarded Hezbollah heartland, to leave immediately. Over the border in Israel, locals are bracing for the worst.
I'm sure that also the Lebanese don't want Hezbollah. They don't want them. We hear shooting.
So that's the sound of gunfire that we can hear from over the border?
In my opinion, this is shooting. I think the Israeli army is going inside now.
And with a front row seat to the new front, it won't be the last echoes of battle to be heard. Matthew Doran, ABC News, Metula.
More Australians are due to arrive back home tonight after a deal was struck between Gulf states and Iran to open safe airspace over the Middle East and to clear the backlog of travellers who've been stranded. Australian consular crisis teams have been deployed and military planes are on standby in the region to support further repatriations after the first commercial flight landed in Sydney last night.
Tears, cheers and relief after days of chaos and fear. Australians finally home after a back-channel deal between Gulf countries and Iran, allowing the limited opening of one safe flight corridor.
Yeah, we got her! Yeah, she's back!
Emirates flight EK414 from Dubai touching down in Sydney last night, carrying 200 passengers. Among the arrivals were more than a dozen students and teachers from Sydney's Barker College. They were on their way to Turkey for a robotics competition when the conflict forced a stopover in Dubai.
There's some very excited parents here, some very relieved staff.
We were told not to go on our phones, try to conserve battery, but we were taken to a bunker.
Sam Brown, her husband and their 4-year-old daughter had only just started a new life in Dubai.
I never thought I'd be in a situation where I heard explosions over my living room, front door rattling.
World champion triathlete Emma Carney was caught up in chaos in Bahrain. After a tense dash to the UAE and multiple flights, she finally landed in Melbourne last night.
Oh, it's wonderful to be home.
As the crisis deepens, the Australian government's confirmed it's sent 2 military transport planes to the region. A KC-30 and a C-17A was sent over earlier this week.
The government is deploying 6 crisis response teams to the region, and we've already deployed military assets as part of our contingency planning.
A second plane load of passengers is due to touch down in Sydney tonight, with more expected in coming days, although it's unclear how long the safe flight corridor will remain open. Passengers are urged to stay across updates from airlines and Smart Traveller. Relief for some as the long road home continues for those left behind. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has used a major speech in the Australian Parliament to issue a call for middle powers to band together in the face of coercion from superpowers. But the Middle East war has loomed over his visit. Mr Carney and Anthony Albanese are both calling for de-escalation, but not pressing for a ceasefire. Here's Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts.
Far-flung friends gathering against a backdrop of war. Mark Carney greeted like family at Australia's Parliament.
Though we could not be further physically apart, Canada and Australia are strategic cousins.
The distance between our two nations has never mattered less, and the closeness of our values has never mattered more.
But the world outside is more dangerous and uncertain, both leaders grappling with the spreading disorder and violence in the Middle East. But neither are calling for a ceasefire, at least for now.
I want to see the possibility of Iran getting a nuclear weapon removed once and for all.
Before there can be a ceasefire, there needs to be a de-escalation of hostilities. Right now we have a spreading of hostilities.
Both countries know they risk becoming mere bystanders as great powers become more willing to wield economic power and deploy military force. Mr Carney using his speech to Parliament to revive his call for middle powers like Canada and Australia to form new coalitions.
The question today for middle powers like us is whether we establish the conventions and help write the new rules that will determine our security and prosperity, or let the hegemons dictate outcomes.
For all the talk of a coalition of middle powers, the brute reality is that Canada and Australia will remain dependent in important ways on both the US and China for years to come. The question is, what red lines can they draw and how can they try to enforce them? For now, the steps are modest, the two countries penning new agreements on critical minerals, vaccines, emergency management and agreeing to set up a defence ministers' meeting.
Australia and Canada have never waited for others to write our futures.
When the rules no longer protect you, you have to protect yourself. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Canberra.
The Premier says the government's actively looking at changing laws that prevent medicinal cannabis patients from legally driving when they're unimpaired. Late last year, the government rejected a drug summit recommendation to bring in a medical defence, saying more consideration was needed pending advice from a working group. Two private members' bills to create defences or exemptions from the offence of driving with THC in your system remain before Parliament. But Chris Minns has told a budget estimates hearing the government will draft its own legislation. A festival organiser has been charged with manslaughter over the death of an attendee who consumed frog poison and a South American hallucinogen. Jared Antonovich collapsed and died while taking part in a ceremony at the Dreaming Arts Festival near Kyogle in 2021. The organiser, Solur Solaris, was arrested earlier this week and is accused of supplying the 45-year-old with the prohibited substances Cambo and ayahuasca. Police will allege he then delayed seeking medical treatment while Mr Antonovich's health deteriorated. There's been an increase in people joining target shooting clubs in New South Wales this year. It comes at the same time gun laws are being tightened following the Bondi terrorist attack. So what's driving the increase and what's the process for getting a gun licence? Charles Rushforth has this Stateline explainer.
To own a firearm in Australia, you need to have what's called a genuine reason. That could be farming animals, killing pests, or preserving antiques. But to get a firearms licence can also be as simple as joining a sports club, with a few added steps.
In New South Wales, around 70,000 people are already members of a sports shooting club, with more signing up.
They get invited to try shooting. We get to see more of them. Do we want them as a member? It's fairly important.
Range officers watch closely for any dangerous behaviour.
They might appear to be under an influence of something or behaving silly or making, dangerous comments or references, and we tolerate none of that.
If you're deemed fit to join, the next step is passing a firearms safety exam.
That includes a written test with about 10 multiple-choice questions, which range from identifying parts of a firearm to safe storage practices.
Next comes a practical exam.
Green light on, safe to move forward.
If they also pass the background checks, they'll be granted a 2-year licence. There's been a recent spike in people joining sports shooting clubs, with more new members signing up in January than the sport usually sees in a year. The association's president believes it could be a reaction to the tightening of gun laws following the Bondi terror attack. Target shooters in New South Wales are now limited to owning a maximum of 10 firearms.
I enjoy shooting shotgun as well, another discipline, so now I have to choose one discipline rather than being able to do multiple.
John Lambert has been shooting for half a century.
At that stage, the instructors were mainly World War II veterans. They gave me one of the club rifles to take home and practice with on my grandmother's lounge room floor.
A glimpse into how much the rules and the culture have already changed. Charles Rushforth, ABC News, Coffs Harbour.
Thousands of delegates from across China have gathered in the capital for the National People's Congress. Alison Horn reports.
From all corners of the country, they arrived in snowy Beijing. The Communist Party government are out to show that China is a beacon of stability as the US upends the global order.
Amidst profound and complex developments, both at home and abroad, the party Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, rallied the Chinese people.
In front of the carefully choreographed Congress, China's second in charge, who's responsible for the economy, was eager to sell the country's achievements.
The main goals in 2025 were accomplished, and solid new strides were made in advancing Chinese modernisation.
But in an unexpected acknowledgement of continuing economic headwinds, the Premier announced the lowest economic target in decades.
Economic growth of 4.5 to 5%.
This meeting is the only time that foreign journalists are allowed access to politicians.
Sorry.
But a couple were willing to talk.
The GDP target is merely a planning figure. However, I am confident that our overall economy will continue to grow.
There'll be extra attention on the outcomes of this year's Congress, in particular from Western leaders who've recently set to rebuild relations with Beijing in the face of what they say is global instability caused by the United States and its President, Donald Trump. Alison Horn, ABC News, Beijing.
Time for a look at finance now. Here's David Chow.
Well, markets across the world tanked earlier this week after the US and Israel started a new war in the Middle East. But many of these markets got over their doom and gloom and rebounded, like South Korea's Kospi, up more than 10% in one day. What's behind this sudden burst of optimism is a report from the New York Times, citing unnamed officials. And that report says Iran's spy agency reached out indirectly to America's CIA to discuss terms for ending the war, something which Iranian officials publicly deny. So the hope this war might not drag on for too long is probably why oil prices haven't spiked all that much in the grand scheme of things. Certainly nowhere near as much as they did when Russia invaded Ukraine. Now that was a spike. Or perhaps markets are underestimating how serious things could get, especially if we fast forward to a few weeks from now and oil tankers still are unable or unwilling to go through the Strait of Hormuz for fear of being attacked by Iranian forces. In commodities, oil went up another 3%, which takes prices to their highest level in a year and a half. That's despite Donald Trump's pledge to protect and insure oil tankers passing through the Persian Gulf. And there was a moderate rise in the price of gold. The Australian share market, meanwhile, clawed back about 0.5%, though it's still down about 3% since the week began. Tech, defence and energy stocks did well, but Star Entertainment was today's big loser. That's after the federal court found its former CEO, Matt Becker, and former in-house lawyer, Paula Martin, breached their duties as executives by not doing enough to prevent money laundering at Star's casinos. They'll be back in court in a few days to learn how much they've been fined. And finally, the Aussie dollar is a little bit weaker at 70.5 US cents. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30, the rape trial that shocked the world. Giselle Pellico shares her story.
What was it really like seeing those 50 men in that courtroom?
J'étais partie en me disant que je ne voulais rien laisser paraître. C'est-à-dire que je voulais rester digne, leur montrer qu'ils ne m'atteignaient pas, ils pouvaient me défier, me regarder. Alors je ne dis pas que c'est facile, il y avait des moments où j'ai eu envie d'hurler, mais je ne voulais pas leur laisser spécial.
To sport, and the Matildas continue their Women's Asian Cup campaign against Iran on the Gold Coast tonight. ABC Sport's Amanda Shalala is there. Amanda, what can we expect from the Matildas tonight?
Jez, as the world number 15, the Matildas are the favourites against the world number 68, Iran. The Matildas started their campaign with a 1-0 win over the Philippines, although coach Joe Montemuro has promised a much improved attacking effort tonight, and there will be a lot of new faces in the starting 11 as well. This game is being played amidst a tense political backdrop with the ongoing war in the Middle East. The Iranian players have faced a lot of questions this week about it, and they are not allowed to speak out about the Islamic Republic regime. I've spoken to sources close to the players who say they have been struggling with that spotlight, but they are doing their best to show strength and to focus on the football as well. We saw them bravely choose not to sing the national anthem before their game against South Korea, which many called an act of defiance against the regime. There are a group of demonstrators here tonight who are protesting against the regime as well. They're also celebrating the death of the Supreme Leader over the weekend, chanting things like "Long live Iran" and "Thank you, Trump." Importantly, though, they've told us that they also really want to show their support to these women who have faced such a challenging road to get here and are struggling while here as well. And they want to show that the Iranian-Australian community is behind them.
Amanda Shalala reporting from the Gold Coast. Formula One teams have officially clocked in for their first race of the 2026 season, and fans flocked to Albert Park to be a part of it. Here's ABC Sport's Alexia Pesce.
Season 2026 is on the starting grid. 22 drivers clocking in for a season of 12 rule changes.
No one really knows where they are at. I think, honestly, we're maybe not as good as where we want to be.
Your teammate said he was a bit nervous about Melbourne.
I'm not.
The new cars are lighter,
with a shortened wheelbase that makes them more nimble and more responsive through the corners.
They'll run on sustainable fuels. The old drag reduction system is out. Overtake mode is in.
It's available to every driver, every lap, to make the most of both downforce and car power.
The drivers have more control over tactics.
At their fingertips is the boost button.
And it makes for far less predictable racing and even more excited fans. Even before the gates officially opened, the diehards had a plan.
Okay, so I kind of did skip law school today to come here.
So my hope for today is Charles notices me at the Melbourne Walk in the banana.
The 1 kilometre foot race to the Melbourne Walk was the first priority. The prize, a moment and hopefully a signature from their favourite drivers. One by one, the stars arrived.
Here above, guys, here above, please.
But even a 7-time champion couldn't steal the spotlight for long. There's new rules, there's even new faces, but with the whole centre draped in papaya, Oscar Piastri mania has officially hit Melbourne.
Oscar, please.
The only debutant on the grid quickly got his taste of Melbourne.
A bit of a busy entrance, that was a lot more than I was expecting.
The 18-year-old will drive for Racing Bulls in a season of fresh starts. Alexia Pesce, ABC News, Melbourne.
The AFL season kicks off tonight when Sydney hosts Carlton at the SCG. ABC Sport's Brett Sprigg is at the SCG.
Yes, he is set for his 150th AFL game tonight, Charlie Curnow, and the first for his new club after an acrimonious departure from Carlton at the end of last year. The Swans out to build on their 12 wins last year. Not good enough for finals qualification, but maybe this year with the AFL's new wildcard rounds in place. The Blues do have 7 new faces, including 2 former Swans, Will Hayward and Ollie Florin, and 2 debutants. Jagger Smith, their top pick from 2 years ago, had a knee injury last year, didn't play a game, and the father-son selection from last year, Harry Dean, also making his first appearance tonight. So some new faces as Michael Voss's 5th year in charge gets underway at Carlton. We have warm, humid conditions here in Sydney for the earliest start to an AFL season ever, but expecting 40,000 here anyway at the SCG as the Swans and the Blues get the new season underway.
It's a career not for the faint-hearted, but for those who dream of a life on stage and screen. Western Sydney University now joins the Club of Unis offering degrees in the performing arts, and it's teamed up with a prestigious acting school that's produced some of Australia's greatest talent.
From a young age, Grezu Vela has felt at ease in the spotlight.
Acting was like one of the only things I was good at, so it was like, you kind of got to do this.
But pursuing his passion hasn't been simple, with few opportunities to study acting close to home.
They look it, they feel it, they exude it.
This year he's had his first break and is one of just 23 students accepted in a new Bachelor of Performing Arts degree at Western Sydney University. The 19-year-old is also the first in his family to go to university.
Monumental is probably the word, because you get to do something that's been so heavily praised as being one of the top things.
The program is in collaboration with the acclaimed Nepean Theatre and Actors Centre Australia. It's made a comeback after a 20-year intermission.
When Theatre Nepean closed down in 2007, it's still a very raw wound for a lot of people. We've also got to bring the culture to the people.
Alumni include Hugh Jackman, David Wenham and Yvonne Strahovski. Over the next 3 years, this course will set the stage for a new generation of Australian actors, providing these students with an opportunity they once dreamed of.
Having that kind of potential to build out in the western suburbs, world-class acting program, world-class actors.
Putting those ambitions front and centre. Pablo Vinales, ABC News, Sydney.
Let's take a look at the weather now. And Tom, it's been another steamy day across the state.
Yes, Jeremy, and the general sentiment is the past few weeks have been especially muggy. And yes, humidity has been slightly higher than normal. But humidity is actually not a great indicator of the true moisture levels. And that's because it's a function of both moisture and temperature, which is why for Western New South Wales, winter is actually far more humid than summer. And for the coast, there is little difference between the seasons. But you don't notice the humidity in cool weather since your body doesn't need to sweat to regulate temperature. Now, a much more direct and accurate measure of how much moisture is in the air is the dew point temperature. And the blue line shows that for Sydney, moisture levels peak between January and March. However, this year that peak is even higher than normal. So far this March, the dew point temperature has been 4 degrees above average. So why is there so much water in the air? Well, this map shows the general wind deviation in February. And for eastern Australia, there was a definite shift to northerly winds, which carried bursts of tropical moisture down into New South Wales. And that was pretty much the pattern today. Warm and humid in Sydney, a low of 22 was 4 above average. The high reached 30 in the city, 5 above, while parts of the west climbed to 31. The run of muggy nights continues across the state. Minimums were as much as 8 above normal. Today's maximums were also up to 8 above, Parkes at 35 and Dubbo 37. On the satellite, well, despite the humidity, much of the state was actually clear, although a few storms did pop up along the ranges during the afternoon. And on the chart tomorrow, all troughs in our neighbourhood will trigger afternoon showers and thunderstorms, while there's multiple tropical lows over the north. And one of them will bring wet and windy conditions tomorrow to Cairns and Townsville, showers easing in Brisbane. For the northeast, warm and humid, possible showers and storms. It's a high chance for the northern rivers, a medium chance for the ranges, and just a slight chance for the Hunter and the southern mid-north coast. For the southeast, medium chance of showers and storms for the Illawarra, along with the central and the southern tablelands. They could be severe over the inland. It's just the chance of showers for the south. To the west, a slight risk of showers and storms from the north down to the central west slopes and plains. A sunny day for the south, 33 in Hay and Wagga Wagga. On the waters, winds from 15 to 20 knots and seas up to 1.5 metres. Now for Sydney, staying warm and humid, a medium chance of showers. They're more likely in the west. There's also the risk of a storm. Easterly winds to 20 kilometres per hour. Both minimums and maximums staying above average, 22 to 29 in the city, tops of 30 to 31 across the west. The sun will rise at 6:46 and set at 27 minutes past 7. And ahead for the city, well, it will be a wet weekend. There's a high chance of showers and storms for Saturday. Could be moderate falls. and a very muggy temperature range of 23 to 29. Then a cooler southerly change by Sunday with further showers, 25. Showers should ease on Monday before warm and mostly dry weather returns between Tuesday and Thursday. And for the west, 30 with showers and storms on Saturday, then dropping to 23 on Sunday with further showers. Just a shower or two on Monday and 24, and that's ahead of brighter skies and warmer temperatures from Tuesday next week. Jeremy.
Tom, thank you. That is the latest from the news team. Thanks for your company. Sarah Ferguson is up next for you with 7:30.